And we're live. Welcome to the Standout Business Show, where it's all about making a bigger difference by doing business differently. I'm Brad Powell, and as a listener, you know that we're all about attracting attention and developing your personal brand because your ability to engage and build relationships with your clients is absolutely essential to the health of your business. Well, my guest today is agency owner Rich Brooks, and he believes that the key to standing out is figuring out what makes your brand remarkable. What are those unique qualities that turn heads, create buzz, and evoke emotion in your audience? Which is why I invited him onto the show today so he can share his remarkability formula that's going to show how you can discover what makes your brand remarkable. Rich is the founder and president of Flyte New Media, a digital agency based in Portland, Maine, and he's the founder of the Agents of Change conference. It's an annual conference and a weekly podcast on all things digital marketing. So if you're wanting to unlock the secret to remarkability and standing out in today's crowded digital marketplace, stay tuned. And with that, let's start the show. All right, Rich, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Brett. That was a great introduction. And being a podcast host myself and having over 550 episodes under the belt, I always find it's funny when somebody says, "Oh, what a great introduction." And I'm like, yeah, you gave me your bio. But you actually, I don't know if you ad-lib, but whatever, you added so much to my bio. I was excited to listen into this episode. So thank you.
All right, well, you're welcome. Do my best here. Ad-libbing is key ingredient.
Absolutely.
Right. Well, to get us started, I love the term remarkability. It's just a great term. But let's wrestle it down to the ground and see what we actually mean by that. Like, what for you, what does it mean for a brand or a business or even a person who's developing their personal brand what does it mean for them to be remarkable?
Right. And I chose the word remarkable and remarkability for very specific reasons, because it does feel like one of those huge, outrageous goals that we set for ourselves. And it is a term that is absolutely a little scary for most people. The idea of being remarkable, I think some of us suffer from imposter syndrome. We're like, oh, well, we're not remarkable. Our business isn't remarkable. Maybe we're a little bit this way or that way. But remarkable really means that you're going to step into this idea that you are unique. And I've been running my agency for 27 years, and I've talked to hundreds, if not thousands, of businesses, and some of them just don't seem to recognize how to stand out online, and that they may already have something to stand out online or offline as well. And so part of the development of this idea, this framework of the Remarkability Formula, was not that I come up with a new idea, because Seth Godin's been talking about the purple cow, and then there's the blue ocean strategy. And of course, everybody's familiar with the unique selling or value proposition. My purpose in kind of developing this framework was to help any person or any brand really understand how they could stand out, how they could be remarkable in the eyes of their ideal clients. And that's where the framework came from. And I'm sure that we'll have a chance to kind of talk through the four lenses that help you identify what makes your brand truly remarkable.
Yeah, and I wonder, when I hear the word remarkable, I mean, the root is talking about remarking. And it's kind of like that, give people something to talk about is the way to become remarkable. It's not just, be different or be unique or be unusual. It's that not only will that be true for you, but that other people will also take that and share it and talk. I mean, Seth Godin talks about this a lot in terms of the sneezability of you and your business and your content. So how do you, like, when you see this and the relationship to your audience and your prospects, engaging them in a way that not only is like, oh, that was really different, but will basically enroll them in literally becoming spreaders of the message and mission that you're on.
I definitely think that that's one of the outcomes of doing something and really identifying what makes you remarkable. And it may be that you're already doing remarkable things, but maybe you haven't positioned yourself the right way, or maybe you haven't identified it, or maybe you haven't named it. I know that there are a lot of people that talk about how to get people to spread the word, and Jay Baer has a great book about that too. All of that is really good content and really important to keep in mind. But I think that that's kind of a natural outcome of really defining your remarkability and giving it a name, so that it's easier for you to explain it to somebody, to have that tagline or that elevator pitch, and then also so that they can wrap their head around it and they're more likely to share with other people. So I definitely think that's one of the benefits of really kind of honing in on what makes your brand remarkable.
All right, well, let's dive in and explore the remarkability formula itself. I know that there are 4 F words that define
Yes,
it.
put it one way. Absolutely. Yeah. So what I ended up doing is I was kind of trying to understand how the companies that we work with could really stand out. Was I started kind of coming up with all these ideas, both from our own clients as well as famous brands that were out there. And I ended up literally just kind of organizing them with sticky notes. And they ended up being kind of in 4 different areas. And so very quickly, the 4 lenses that I talk about are find, focus, forge, and frame. And I'll kind of break those down a little bit, and then I'm happy to answer questions about each one. Find is that there is already something remarkable about your business, and all you really need to do is identify it and give it a name. Focus is the idea of niching down so that you are delivering a solution that only you can deliver to your customers. And by narrowing or niching down, you're really getting rid of any of the competition. Forge is the third one. And Forge is about creating something that is outside of your traditional offering, but still in alignment with your mission and vision and values. That one's probably the toughest to wrap your head around, so I'll give some examples there too. And the last one is frame, and that's just about how do you position your offering in a new or unique way so that the value of what you do is clearly communicated to that ideal customer. So find, focus, forge, and frame are the 4 lenses that you can turn on yourself, turn on your own business, your brand, to really help you identify your own remarkability.
All right, well, we'll go back to the beginning of finding the thing that is cool and unique about yourself. So when you're working with clients and you're helping them go through this initial process, what are the things that you ask them or tell them to look for when they're looking inside or under the hood of their business and saying, well, what do we got here that's, at all distinctive?
Right. So I think what I usually tell them, or that we do for them, or if people are, doing this on their own, what I would recommend is it's not about what you think. It's really about what your customers think. So usually I'm working with businesses that have some sort of history. They have some sort of client base that they can go back to. And what I usually recommend, and what we've done for people in the past, is interview some of those past clients, asking them about, what state they were in when they first found this company, what problem they were looking to solve, what the outcome was, and all those sort of things. And very often, one of 2 things is going to happen. Either it's going to reinforce what you already think is your unique selling proposition, or you're going to discover that people find value in your business that you never even realized was there. And just a very easy example, when I bought my first home many, many years ago, first time homeowner, there was the paint, it needed a paint job really badly. I had never gone through this. I talked to some friends. They're like, oh, getting your house painted is really this ordeal where they're going to come and they're going to turn your house into this basic work zone for like a week or more. They won't show up on time. The job's going to be dragged out. We interviewed a few different painting companies, and one guy told me he'd get the whole job done in 2 days. I was like, sold, let's do this. And the way that he did it was, they weren't concurrent days, but he showed up with about 20 guys in 5 white vans. They poured out of the vans like they were clowns in the circus, threw up ladders, painted the whole house. They were done by sunset with all their equipment removed. I think they were singing sea shanties the whole time, but maybe I'm just embellishing. I'm not really sure at this point. They came back 2 days later after the paint had dried, did the whole thing again, and then they were gone. And as you can imagine, 20 guys painting your house with 5 vans out front, the neighbors took notice and they were asking questions about it. To your point of, having remarkability means people can tell that story again and again. So in my mind, that was a really remarkable thing that was already going on within this company, because it's very hard to keep 20 people on staff, especially in Maine where the painting season is so short. So that was something that was already in their company. They didn't necessarily lead with this. It was something that just kind of came up in conversation. And if they were my client, I would have said, this is really your unique selling point. This is what makes you remarkable. It already exists, and you just need to give it a name and then kind of run with it. So that's an example of find, but it could be something that's in your pricing, something in your positioning, something in your location, but there's already reasons why people choose you, and it's about identifying and giving it a name that really makes it come through. And I'll just say that just because whether or not you find something in find, you should still continue to keep going, because it's more about layering these things on top of each other and not just saying, oh, I found something, I'm done.
Right. Well, did those guys make any video about the 20 guys?
way before anybody was making any video. This was probably back in 1999.
Oh, yeah, right. All that stuff, any of that stuff we did back in the 90s is invisible. It doesn't exist anymore.
For better
it's
or worse.
interesting. It reminds me, there's a woman down in New Orleans who, after Katrina, she I don't think she'd ever done anything like this before, but she got into the demolition business and bought, I don't know, a bulldozer or something that could knock things down. But she painted her bulldozer pink. and her company has grown, like it's now huge. And one of the things that she does regularly is anytime she buys a new piece of equipment, she'll hold a press conference and have this pink, giant, whatever it is, machine in a parking lot. And she'll actually get, coverage, because she's, first of all, women in construction, and all her bulldozers and all her people are wearing pink. It's quite remarkable.
Definitely.
And all right. So now we're going to narrow in on who we're talking to. And I think there's like sort of two different sides of the coin here. One is people think about niching down as, well, I'm going to speak only to people in this one industry lane, like just lawyers or just plumbers or something like that. Whereas on the other lane that can be parallel is, well, what kind of problem do they have? And do I solve this in an unusual way? And so when you're thinking from the relative part of remarkability, it seems like even though you might be niching down to a single industry, that by itself isn't necessarily particularly remarkable. And so how do you, when you're talking about stacking things up, what are the things and opportunities you see for people to stack when it comes to narrowing?
Yeah, so I think kind of what you're getting at is a great point. Like generally the two ways that people could niche down or niche down is either by going after a specific industry or a specific demographic, and that's a smart move to make, a good business move to make. And the other thing would be is not necessarily to go for a specific industry, but instead to go for a specific service. Like I only do Facebook ads, and then if you combine those, I only do Facebook ads for lawyers, then all of a sudden you become this amazing resource. Yes, you can't do business with most of the world, but lawyers who are interested in Facebook ads will definitely seek you out. And so that's kind of the idea of niching down, where we really just focus on something on a very specific area. And I know when companies start out, we're all like this. We want to be all things to all people, but that's absolutely the worst business advice that you can follow. And so I think what you really want to think about is, how can I serve less people? How can I reduce my hours? How can I restrict people from working with me? Which sounds counterintuitive, but what you'll find is you'll attract that small niche as long as it's big enough to keep you in business, and you will immediately become the most sought after person for that. And I mean, just this is kind of a strange example, but when I moved into my most recent home, my current home, I was looking for an oil company. And when I went online and found the cheapest oil delivery prices, I noticed that this one company that had the lowest prices basically stopped their delivery about a block in front of my house. But, I figured, what's the big deal? I'm sure they would go an extra block to get another customer. I called them up and they said, I'm sorry, you're outside of our range. And instead of being upset about it, I was actually really impressed because they probably sat there, done the math. They know that they have enough potential customers in that geographic area. And once they start going outside of it, their costs are going to go up. It's going to take longer to make those oil deliveries. It's going to cost more in gas to deliver that oil. So they can keep their costs down by only serving this very small area, even though it means they're not going to be serving all these other people. And the other benefits to really niching down is how fast you become an expert in that field. And when I was doing the research into this, I found out that I think it was back in 2017 was the last data they had for this, but the average American primary care physician makes a very healthy $299,000 a year, or $249,000 a year, sorry. But the average specialist in America in that same year made $399,000. So $150,000 more a year for actually being able to help fewer people with fewer problems. But they became so good in this. And what I think is true about humans is when something's really important to us, whether it's our health or our finances or what have you, that we're more willing to pay a premium to get that specialist. We don't want a general physician if we need a hip or a knee replacement. We want the person, the doctor, the surgeon who's always doing hip or knee replacements because he or she has done so many, they're obviously the best. So really focusing down and trying to serve a smaller and smaller audience. As long as there's enough people in that audience that you can be profitable, then I think that's an absolute way to go. And again, being remarkable is about continuing to layer these things on so you continue to become the only go-to resource for your ideal customer.
Yeah, I think that, the thing of solving a particular kind of issue for people, when you're talking about this is something that you can rinse and repeat again and again as your niche. I mean, the story of Alex Hermosi's first gym business, where he's going to gym owners and saying, look, I'll fill your gym. And if he can do it really well in one place, he can kind of take that exact same process and do it again and again, which is, of course, what he did. And it's how his first business did so well for him, put him on the path where he is now. So let's talk about the forging process. I love the word forge, by the way. But you're talking about doing things that are like outside the normal range of where you might be or might be thinking of doing stuff. So how do you help people get to that particular place? Because I bet there's a lot of resistance there.
There can be. Sometimes it already exists, but sometimes it is about forging something brand new. And it is not something that's necessarily going to generate you direct revenue. So that can be tricky. But for example, there's a restaurant up here in Maine called the Lost Kitchen. And they only take reservations by postcard. And you might think like, oh my God, like what a hassle that is. And they get like 20,000 postcards a year. They have to come in during a very specific time. And, last time I checked, it was 20,000. The number may have already gone up. And this is a very sought after restaurant, but the idea that they would only accept postcards, you can't call, you can't go there. You literally just have to fill out this card. It's almost like getting Grateful Dead tickets back in the 70s and 80s. You had to mail in and hope it came back to you. And this is how it works. And so there's almost a lottery system there. And like part of you might say, well, there must be an easier way to do this. I mean, think of all the paper cuts that you must get trying to go through 20,000 postcards. But when you know and understand more about the brand of the Lost Kitchen, that it's very organic, that the owner is self-taught, that very often all the food that came from the local farms, those same farmers are actually going to be your servers at night, that they sit you at these very long family style tables next to strangers. And, the menu is already predetermined based on what came in that day. It's a very organic experience. So the idea of having to send in a handwritten note saying that you want a table, that just kind of very much feels in line with everything else. And to your point that you made at the beginning of the conversation, Brad, gets people talking. It got journalists talking, got foodies talking. Everybody, loves this whole idea, even though it's an extra step, a little bit of extra work. And along the same lines, keeping, the food motif going here is, I don't know if you've ever overcooked spaghetti. God knows I have. It seems easy enough, right? It says right on the side of the box, cook for 9 minutes, 11 minutes, what have you. But we almost always seem to, or very often will overcook it. And the company, oh my goodness, I'm blanking on the name of the company right now, but there is an Italian pasta company begins with a B. Can't believe I'm blanking on it. I guess they weren't remarkable enough. But they have Spotify playlists that are timed to the exact length
that's brilliant.
of each one of their pasta styles. So it's like boom bap fusilli or mixtape spaghetti. All these are featuring Italian artists, and the artwork on the front on the playlist are by Italian creators as well. And it's just a fascinating, interesting way of kind of showing that it's in alignment with their brand. You don't have to use it. You can use, that smart speaker in your kitchen and ask it to time things for you. But it kind of just reinforces this whole thing that they believe that cooking is art. And it may be, to your point, that you already have something that you forged and you just didn't even realize it. And that's what happened to me. We've been putting on a digital marketing conference called the Agents of Change. Nobody has to attend the conference to work with my digital agency, Flyte New Media, nor do you have to be working with Flyte to attend AOC. They're completely separate things, but there's a lot of overlap in terms of the content that we discuss and the goals for both of them. One is a done-for-you agency, and the other is a let's show you how to be the best digital marketer you can be. But when I get up on stage to speak and to announce, the beginning of the conference, people see me on stage and they see me as both Agents of Change and Flyte New Media. And that's had a huge impact in our business as people then see that, or people have brought Flyte New Media into their businesses. And I'll say like, hey, how did you hear of us? And they'll tell me, oh, I've been going to Agents of Change for years and I'm finally ready for a new website, or I'm finally ready for SEO. So a lot of times creating these things outside of your business can really help people identify who you are, what you stand for, and will get you more business than you would have gotten without them. And that's the whole idea behind Forge.
Yeah, well, you're absolutely putting yourself in the middle of a conversation of your audience that wants to happen. And you're the host, you're the moderator, you're the the one that they're all seeing right in the middle of all of that, which is terrific. It's a great way to have your work, your actual work, be positioned within this larger sort of bunch of stuff that's going on all around it. And I'm going to go back to the playlist idea, though. That's just so brilliant. I mean, the idea, first of all, people are cooking from home, they're making pasta, and they're inviting their friends over, and then they put on this playlist. And people go, what is that? And so people are, moving and dancing in the kitchen to this music. And that's definitely something for people to take with them and say, oh, right, we got to do this. We got to try this next week for ourselves.
And it's Barilla Pasta. I want to give credit where credit is due. The name came back to me. So Barilla Pasta, you can check it out on Spotify. And these lists have like 18,000 likes on them. So people are actually listening to them, enjoying them too.
Yeah, I can imagine. That's really, really good. All right, well, let's do the last one. Looking at my notes here, we're talking about the frame, which is another great one. And it's basically, position yourself somewhere in that frame.
Right. And my favorite example of this is a woman by the name of Wendy Huang. I heard about her when I was reading a book called The Introvert's Edge. And it was about a business coach who basically would come and help a company reposition themselves or position themselves in new ways, among other things. And for Wendy, she was teaching people Mandarin out in California, and business was great, very successful. But then after a while, she noticed that a lot of low price competitors were kind of charging less and eating up a lot of her market share. And worse than that, people were even taking lessons on sites like Fiverr. And all of a sudden she found that she was competing on price and that she was losing a lot of her business, losing her profitability. And she was worried that her business was going to disappear. And so the coach came in and they were talking about what they were doing. And he identified two people who were taking her Mandarin lessons because they had been transferred to China for business. And not only was she teaching them Mandarin, but she was also teaching them how to behave and what the expectations were once they got to China when it came to business interactions. And on top of that, she was working with the spouses and children to kind of help them get ready for this big move, because it is a big culture shock when you move from the West Coast to China. And he said, oh, so you're not just teaching them Chinese, teaching them Mandarin, you're actually helping them succeed in China. And from that moment on, they rebranded her as the China Success Coach. And not only did they rebrand her, and suddenly she's no longer competing on price. She wasn't adding anything new. These were all things she was doing, but now they've got kind of a package around her so that people better understand what she can actually deliver. And on top of that, she started focusing on businesses that were transferring people to China for business so that she was getting a steady line of referrals. So again, she's kind of taking that frame and she's also combining it with focus, which again is that whole point of don't just stop with one thing that's unique about your business. Go through the whole process, identify everything, put it all together, and that's where that true remarkability really comes out.
Yeah, right. The success in China coach. That's a good one.
Yeah.
I can imagine people doing that for just about any location on the planet.
Absolutely.
And a good one. So anyone listening out there, if you're teaching a foreign language and you want to up your game, great idea for you. I'm sure that people aren't doing it for Lithuanians yet.
There you go. That's your niche.
Right. All right. Well, this is way cool. We're just about at the end of our time today. So if there's just one more thing that you'd like to add to the realm of remarkability, what would that be?
I would just say, kind of reinforce the idea that remarkability is like beauty and it's in the eye of the beholder. So just because you think something is truly remarkable about your company, if your customers don't agree with it, then it's not remarkable. It's just some feature of your business. So I really think that it's key that if you have any sort of history with your business and with clients, is that you go talk to your current client base, you go talk to your past clients and you interview them and really get a better understanding of what the problem was that they felt they had and how your solution solved it, because that's where really some of the most interesting insights take place. And when I first started doing this, I didn't have the AI tools that are available to us today. But one of the nice things about using Zoom and using an AI note taker, I prefer Fathom, is that you can take a bunch of these interviews and with permission record them, drop them into something like Fathom, and then put them into something like ChatGPT or Claude, and start to ask questions of all those interviews, ask questions about the data, and you'll be able to pull great insights. And the more people you can interview, the more insights you can gather from that. So this is something that can really be sped up and enhanced by using some of the AI tools that are now available to us that weren't necessarily available when I started this remarkable journey.
Yeah, well, using AI to do your customer research definitely shortens the time frame on the process there. It makes it go a whole lot faster, and it's kind of amazing finding stuff that you would not necessarily have found through the use of one of the smarter things that AI can do for us. All right, well, this is way cool. I love the idea that the success of your business is in the eye of the beholder. That's a good one to keep in mind, that perspective. And so we want to talk about, first of all, the Agents of Change conference, which is coming up in the not too distant future. And I know that you've got a special offer for folks who might want to attend the conference. So what is that?
Yeah, so we're having our 10th annual Agents of Change Digital Marketing Conference. This takes place in Portland, Maine, but it also takes place online. So I know that not everybody's going to be able to get to Portland, Maine. The conference is on October 9th, 2024. We've got a deep dive workshops, which are an add-on on the next day, the 10th of October. But for people who are interested, we've got 15 amazing digital marketing experts coming to Portland, Maine, getting on stage, sharing their best secrets for an all-day event. And you can find out more at theagentsofchange.com, and you'll find the information about the conference, and you'll be able to see who all the speakers are. You'll be able to see the agenda, all the details on that. Through the month of September, we're running a back-to-school special, so you can save $50. But even if you miss that, you can use a promo code STANDOUT, just like the name of the show, and you'll save an additional $25, either off the already discounted price or off the full price. And that's good for those digital passes too. So if you can't make it and you want to watch the live stream and you want to see all the sessions on demand, head on over to theagentsofchange.com and think of Brad and use the promo code STANDOUT, and you'll save $25 off your ticket. All
right. Well, I'll make sure that links to all of that and the standout code are in the show notes. And yeah, I'm going to go there. I'll be there in Portland because here I am.
Awesome.
I'm in Boston, so it's only an hour and a half drive. So I might even take.
Oh my God! Totally day trip.
I might even just take the train, which is a even more fun way to
Nice.
get there.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, I have a question for you about Portland. This is really an aside. The last time I was there was actually quite a while ago. It was before the pandemic. And the thing that I saw there that really tweaked my interest was the Phoenix newspaper, which used to be in Cambridge, like it's a very independent rag, was still operating in Portland. Is it still there now, or is it totally disappeared?
Sadly, it is no longer available. Yeah. So I grew up in Needham, Mass, and I was friends with Brad Mindich, whose father was the founder of the Phoenix that was
Oh,
in
wow.
Boston, and then they opened up in Portland, and I think one other city too. But no, unfortunately, that local paper is no longer in existence. It's too bad. I always liked the writing in that paper.
I know. Sad, sad demise of local press. It's really a shame.
Yeah,
Anyway,
absolutely.
really fun to have you on today, Rich. And I will look forward to seeing you again in October.
I appreciate it, Brad, and I appreciate you sharing the stage with me and inviting me on. So thank you very much.
Yeah. And for those of you listening at the end, I just want to remind you that if you'd like to go and get the entire archive of the Standout Business Show, just go to standoutbusiness.show, and it's all there, all the audio, all the video, all the show notes, all the special offers, and you can binge to your heart's content. We go live every week at 11 a.m. Eastern Time on Tuesday and on Thursday. And until the next time, so long.